Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about the difference between exercising and training, and hopefully we can delineate the exercises and also help you place yourself in one place or another, so that you can more accurately get a better workout and question yourself less. If you have any questions, post them underneath. We're going to be going through a lot. We've got the whiteboard already laid out. But the two things we're looking at is CrossFit specific training, and these are things that are in the sport of CrossFit. So I don't mean CrossFit gyms, I mean more so CrossFit Open, CrossFit Regionals, CrossFit Games. If that's important to you, or if it's important to you that you are doing similar movements to them, then this becomes important. Now, if you say it's important to do similar movements, again, ask why. Is it to become fit, or is it for the competition? If it's fit, you still might want to look at this other side. The other side is general strength and conditioning, longevity. So the reason why I put the longevity is that both of these have different lifespans. This one, most people, it's going to have a steeper incline, in that your increases, you might have to take riskier increases. You might have to push harder, and by pushing harder, you risk more injury. The other one is staying safe, but still getting super fit. And I'll explain how you can balance the two. We've laid out the movements that you would see in a workout and how you can choose, or how I choose in a workout for my goals. So many times, recently my shoulder hasn't been feeling good on kipping pull-ups, or a lot of mobility, or movements that require a lot of mobility. So for the past, I'd say year or 2 years, I rarely kip pull-ups. So whenever kipping pull-ups come up in a workout, if it's a few, 5 to 10 at a time, instead of doing kipping pull-ups, I come over here and I do strict pull-ups if it's 5 to 10. If it's more than 10, I do ring rows instead. So that's something that I do just because I'm not willing to compromise my shoulder over the long term, and I'm not going towards CrossFit specific training. If I were aiming to compete in CrossFit, I'd kip, and I'd work my mobility to increase my ability there. But if I'm not competing, I stay here. That's for me personally. Also, next thing, kipping handstand push-ups. They concern me mostly because as you come down, it's a lot of pressure on your head, and then as you kip, it's even more pressure on your spine. So for me, longevity-wise, again, I'm not competing. I'm just exercising to be fit, to have fun, to look good, to do whatever I want in life. I move over here, and I either do strict handstand push-ups, and for me, that means increasing to a deficit, so going as low as I can in my head, in between my hands, or I do dips. Those are my two options instead of kipping handstand push-ups. Instead of double unders. So I can do double unders. I've practiced them enough, and I can get 50 or more in a row, but they don't give me a great workout. So instead of those, I head over to ski, run, or row. And recently I've just been doing ski, mostly because it's more similar to the double under in that I'm getting my arms. Usually we have run or row, so I don't worry about that, but I usually alternate with the ski. Next one. Also, if you guys have questions, Rebecca's gonna shout them out and let me know. So give her questions. Next, Olympic lifting. So in CrossFit specific training, you will always see Olympic lifts in the regionals and in the games. You'll see max clean and jerks or max snatches. What you won't see is max back squats. Only few times have you seen max deadlifts, and never a max bench press or strict press. So in CrossFit specific training, you get Olympic lifting. This requires a lot of mobility, a lot of technique, coordination, strength, and it's a lot of pieces fitting together perfectly. Instead of Olympic lifting, now I do Olympic lifts. It's taken me a long time to practice them, but in the meanwhile, I also made sure that I focus on things that got me fit and strong and healthy. So deadlifts, squats, benches, and presses. And I mean strict overhead press, not jerks. So those are working a specific muscle. And then when I've gotten over to the Olympic lifting, I have the strength in that muscle to put it together in that movement. You don't have to do Olympic lifting to be fit. Rebecca's nodding. You don't have to do Olympic lifting to be fit. It is a display. It's kind of like the routine that we have in CrossFit that displays how fit and capable and coordinated people are. It's more like a dance with the bar. It's not a strength movement. It's a dance. And no, that's not diminishing it. It's amazing. It's really hard, but it has a lot of requirements. So I tend to go towards deadlifting, squats, benches, and presses for longevity and my own health. Next one, rope climbs. Rope climbs tear up my elbows, especially if I do a lot of them, and I don't get the specific work in my lats or in my back that I need and that we lack in CrossFit. We don't have a lot of back work. So that's why we prioritize getting the ropes to pull the sleds across the floor. So sled pulls are really important, especially as you're increasing weight. This is for the muscle that we don't get often enough in CrossFit. The last one, it kind of goes along with Olympic lifting, but in the WODs, jerks. Sometimes people have come up to me and said, hey, how do I get more rounded shoulders, or how can I build my deltoids, or how can I do this? The main movement is an overhead press. So a dumbbell or a barbell strict press. But in CrossFit, in the workouts, rarely do we ever do strict presses. We do them, now we program them in post work and accessory work, but in the WODs, it's usually shoulder to overhead. And a lot of that is utilizing your legs to take all of the work, or as much as possible, out of your shoulders. So if you want strong shoulders, or if you want to build a muscle in your shoulders, get toned or get strong, jerks might not be the best. You'd go to strict press, right? Now, overall, I'm not gonna say that one is better than the other. I bounce between both. I do Olympic lifting every other day, probably, in cleans or jerks. I don't do kipping because I don't see the value for me, longevity. For 10 years, 20 years down the road, I want to preserve myself. But for the Olympic lifting, I'm okay with it. I'll do rope climbs and jerks, but I still make sure that I have the basics nailed down. I never neglect these to go over to the other side. These are a base, and then on top of this base, I add some of these. But it's never one or the other. It's this first, and while you get this, you might add in some of these. So that takes us down to some of the needs of this CrossFit specific training. The CrossFit specific training, the Olympic lifts and the kipping, requires mobility, technique, time. So this is reps. This is purposeful practice, not just putting in time flipping the rope around, but purposefully practicing it. The next is the base of the other movements. That means all of these. Don't think that you can bypass these movements to go over to the other side. These are the stepping stone, and once you have the other side, you can't neglect them either. You need to keep on revisiting and practicing. The needs for these go all the way down to here. You really only need desire and effort. Keep the desire and effort, and you'll have a lot of ability. These will get you very fit. One other thing that's important to look at for the both. Look at your lifespan as well. So a lot of times we don't have a long-term approach to things, but when I'm 70, 80, and 90 years old, sure, it would be nice if I could do a snatch or a clean, but it might not be important to my life. It is important, however, that I can pick something up off the floor, whether it's a bag of food or a whatever else, and that's a deadlift. Something to press over top, squatting down to a toilet. So these movements stay important for your life. These movements stay important for only CrossFit. So keep perspective as you guys train as well. These are all in the middle, and other ones as well. Box jumps, just any type of squat, any type of abs, thrusters, wall balls, and all of the others. They're in the middle. They're important for both. They increase your ability and your engine. And so those are kind of the good meaty middle. We fill them in, we keep them in. Kettlebell swings. But So my overall thought right now, at least, is the CrossFit training is going to be specific and useful here in this small space, this gym. These other movements are going to be helpful and useful over a long period of time and over a long and large group of movements. So hiking, biking, running, living longer. Okay? So, any questions?
No, but mention if they've never done CrossFit before and they want to try it out, that they should contact me.
Oh yeah. And if you've never done CrossFit, contact Rebecca, contact us on this post. But and also, as you start CrossFit, we start with these base movements. We start with the movements that you can do today. We build intensity in those safely. And then once you can safely do those, then we move over to the other ones. So, of course, safety first and then intensity.
And it's scalable and modifiable. We meet you where you're at.
All of that. We meet you where you're at. These, and that's the important part of these movements. These movements can be done almost by anyone. Scaled infinitely to everyone. And that's why these are the base movements. Every human should be able to do these or a variation of these. Snatches, however, or double unders or kipping handstand push-ups, they aren't always necessary and possible for just anyone walking in off the street. So, but the other ones are, and that's where the base of our program should be. So, or of your training. If you're neglecting any of that, you have a weakness. So, anything else? Any questions?
No questions. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. If you do have questions, go ahead and post them to this live, and we'll see if we can answer them later on during the day. But if you do want to start CrossFit and have never done it before, give me a call at 801-573-7431, and we will get you ready for a little intro session. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.